Hello guys, welcome to my channel Lucid Fanfic, and if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. After the physical and emotional roller coaster that was the assessment test, Izawa dismissed the class telling them to get changed, go get their student syllabus, then left. This left our intrepid trio along with the rest of the class on their own in the middle of the field, slightly bewildered at their teacher's methods, but all in all relieved to have survived the first lesson, which made one pink girl extremely happy. Hooray, we all get to stay and become friends. The pink girl yelled with gusto and joy, which caused many smiles, a bit of mirth, and a certain blonde and a certain white and red-haired boy to simultaneously scowl, mutter something, and leave with auras or anger and self-importance. How about when we're all done changing, we introduced ourselves to one another along with our likes, dislikes, and quirks. We are going to know each other for then, next few years, no point in being strangers, suggested the invisible girl with bounce and spirit aplenty. And so they did. They all got changed again. Once again our trio were complimented, only this time on their abilities, which again pissed off Bakugo again as it set off his inferiority complex, and they all made their way back to the dorms. As the invisible girl suggested, each of them individually took a stand in the main room and laid out their name, age, likes, dislikes, and quirks. With the exception of Todoroki, who simply went to his room and locked the door, Bakugo, who said her was the strongest, and they should all just give up now. Everyone's introduction went well, even Shinso's, who was surprised at everyone praising how cool his quirk was, which causes him to blush, not used to the praise. However, when it came to our trio, things quickly turned nerve-wracking for both Izuku and Melissa, as they were quirkless and feared that they may be treated due to this fact, so they made a decision. After May finished introducing herself, both Izuku and Melissa went up together, and after introducing themselves, expressing their love of the sciences and pre-quirk comics, as well as a few dislikes, they confessed simultaneously. "I'm quirkless," they both said in unison, fear filling their voices. "Nonsense," was the first reply from the angry blonde with all the subtlety of a nuclear explosion. "You used some telekinesis thing to fly, and you increased your strength with that black sludge, you lying DKU." He continued, to the undisguised contempt of everyone else in the room. "Not that I would phrase it as brutishly as Bakugo, but his point stands. You both clearly possess quirks similar to Hatsume's," interjected Ida. "It's no lie. Both me and Izu are completely quirkless. The fantastical abilities you all witnessed between the three of us were a result of technological and biological enhancements that we invented," replies Melissa, deactivating the nano-camo that hid her robotic limbs, to the surprise of everyone in the room, having never heard of technology that allowed for telekinesis. "So wait, you three are cyborgs?" asked Kaminari. "Yes, technically," replied Izuku, slightly taken aback by everyone just accepting that he and Melissa were quirkless. "So cool and manly. You got into UA without a quirk," yelled Kirishima enthusiastically. "Wait, you aren't going to judge us based off our status?" asked Izuku, bewildered, having looked into the depressing lives of other quirkless people and fearing the worst. "You three decided your own path to becoming a hero, and besides, why should any of us judge you on something you can't control?" replied Yaoyorozu, with Jiro nodding in agreement. "Being quirkless doesn't diminish you three as individuals. In fact, it makes me respect you more than I already did, Midoriya," responded Ida sternly. "Yet judging someone based on their quirk is so unmanly," shouted Kirishima with gusto. Many of their other classmates also interjected with their own retorts on how judging someone on their quirk is dumb and regressive, all of which made Melissa relax and Izuku cry with happiness at the potential of more friends who don't care about his quirklessness. Whilst this was occurring, Bakugo was getting more and more nettled by the second seeing Deku and his blonde beach get complimented for their efforts and how quirks don't mean everything. Of course they mean everything. All Might had a cool and strong quirk, and everything respected him, so why shouldn't the same be for himself? Whilst everyone was distracted by the trio of cyborgs, Bakugo slinked off thinking of how best to put the trio in their place. The next day, throughout the first day of actual lessons, the mood was jovial for our trio, as they spent nearly all day skipping lessons like math, English, and science due to their utter pointlessness to them. This was of course authorized by Nizu, who quickly realized that putting the trio in standard lessons was utterly pointless due to their incredible intelligence and achievements. So as such, he decided to personally teach them all he knew about whatever they requested, as it would more than likely be interesting. They also took the time to discuss a certain future project the trio had planned. The only lesson they did have to take was of course the heroics class, which they were all looking forward to. "So who do you think will be teaching our heroics class?" asked Mina excitedly. "Seeing as all the other teachers are pro heroes, then our heroic teacher will likely also be a pro, most likely a retired one," replied Momo. Just then, "I'm coming through the door like a normal person," yelled All Might as he awkwardly posed in the doorway. "No way All Might's going to be teaching us how to be heroes, so manly," shouted Kirishima excitedly. "Yes, young Kirishima, I All Might am here to train you in heroics. More specifically, today's lesson will be combat trials," the hero announced boisterously. "Combat trial. Yes, this is the perfect opportunity to put those three in their place and prove that you need a quirk to be a hero," thought Bakugo sadistically. "But what's a hero without the right outfit to comfort civilians and strike fear into villains?" All Might said as he pushed a button, causing the wall to open, revealing metal labels, metal cases containing everyone's costumes. Well, almost everyone's. "Now to training field Gamma, everyone," All Might said as he suddenly vanished using his incredible speed. Gamma Field Observation Room. The number one hero waited as his students all slowly walked in wearing their costumes until only 3 had yet to enter. "Does anyone know where Young, Shield, Hatsum, and Midoriya are?" asked the hero, noticing their absence. "Probably got scared and ran off. Useless morons," Bakugo said with venom earring him angry glares which he ignored. "Sorry to keep you all waiting, everyone. We had to ensure everything was set up," announced Izuku as May and Melissa entered the room, wearing only black full-body suits. "So you've got some cool looks, but why are you costumes the same?" asked Yurika curiously. "Who said that these are our costumes?" replied May with a smug grin as all 3 of them starting leaking nanotech from their chest lights as their costumes took shape. The class then proceeded to witness with boggled eyes the entire trio's costumes materialize from the black substance they saw the day prior take shape and coloration into 3 unique suits. Izuku's was the most standard hero costume between the 3. He'd gone for a skin-tight undersheath with the primary color of celadone green, accented golden gate orangish red in geometric lines, his arc reactor on full display. The most eye-catching parts were, however, the gauntlets, boots, and cape. The gauntlets and boots were rather bulky but still rather compact. All 4 limbs were in jet black, again accented with golden gate red lines, whilst the cape for white on the outside and jungle green on the inside. By contrast, May's suit looked straight out of Sci-Fi video game or movie. Her undersheath was charcoal black with no accents, but was covered in geometric growths. Hers was also very armored with highly durable armor. However, each piece looked removable, covering most of her body, only leaving certain joints and flexibility locations unarmored. The armor itself was colored a combination of electric dark blue and glaucous purple, with several turquoise lights dotted through it, with the brightest emitting from her chest, where her reactor was. Lastly, her helmet had an X-shaped visor and was fully armored. Lastly, Melissa's suit looked like a suit of true blue power armor. Her undersheath was the least viable amongst the 3, colored a dim gray, but the rest of her body, excluding her face, was fully covered in space black and gunmetal gray armor from head to toe, with pearl beige light in between her armor's crevasses being the only accenting color. As the show finished, and everyone else on the room put their bulging eyes back in their sockets and picked up their jaws, All Might explained the trial with it being a standard 2v2 battle with an objective for one team to acquire and an overall time limit. However, as All Might was explaining the random teams, Ida interrupted, asking why the teams were random, to which Izuku swiftly explained that it would prepare them for working with unfamiliar teammates in the future, to which Ida thanked him as All Might started churning out the teams. Team A, Todoroki, Azui. Team B, Shield, Shinso. Team C, Aoyama, Ishido. Team D, Hatsum, Yurika. Team E, Ida, Jiro. Team F, Kirishima, Shoji. Team G, Hagakure, Yorozu. Team H, Bakugo, Siro. Team I, Kaminari, Ojiro. Team J. Midoriya, Tokoyami. Now let's see who will be facing who. Announced All Might preparing to once again randomly select the fights. Team A the heroes versus Team D the villains. Team G the heroes versus Team E the villains. Team I the heroes versus Team F the villains. Team J the heroes versus Team H the villains. Team C the heroes versus Team B the villains. Now let us begin. Teams A and D go get ready, and the rest of you shall remain here to witness their battle. Declared All Might, and thus the first heroics class began. Gamma Field Observation Room. As the two teams of A and D made their way to the fake building with Team A entering and Team D waiting outside, the atmosphere was filled with speculation of who would come out on top. There was also an air of excitement at getting to see how well Hatsume's battlesuit fared in open combat against Quirks. So who you guys think will win? Asked Mina to no one in particular. One could posit that the hero team would win due to Todoroki's control over his ice along with Tsu's agility and range of abilities. However, we have no idea what Hatsume's suit is capable of. Its weaponry, abilities, and mechanisms are all a mystery to us. Along with the weapons we saw her carrying and Yururika's ability to nullify gravity, I can't give an accurate prediction without any significant evidence. Replied Momo with a voice mired in curiosity. An apt observation, young Yorozu. Whilst young Todoroki's quirk might be the strongest in this scenario, quirks are however merely tools much like young Hatsume's suit, and that if used improperly may lead to defeat. However, young Todoroki's capabilities were revealed yesterday during the apprehension test, whilst young Hatsume's suit's abilities were not, and underestimating it would be highly foolish. Remember, no matter how powerful you may be, never underestimate an opponent and always study them for openings and weaknesses. Interjected All Might with boisterous confidence in his wisdom, to the gratitude of many in the class and the undisguised contempt of a certain blonde. You've got this, may we believe in you. Both Izuku and Melissa thought simultaneously. Inside the fake building, Sue was inspecting the fake papier-mâché bomb, whilst Todoroki had a look of total indifference on his face. We should probably think of a plan of defense, Ribbit, stated Sue bluntly. No need, I can do this myself, replied Todoroki bitterly to Tsu's surprise. Heroes may now enter the building, announced All Might of the speaker system. After about a minute, Todoroki suddenly froze the entire building. There, they've been captured, stated Todoroki with cool confidence as he waited for his declaration of victory for the hero, but none came. Instead, another noise erupted from the north wall. Kaboom! Suddenly, the north wall was annihilated by an explosion which knocked Todoroki violently onto his keister. The young man stood back up and looked out the giant hole only to see both Mei and Yururika floating outside, with Mei holding a Sci-Fi bazooka and Yururika holding a strange rod. Flashback to about 5 minutes ago. We see both Mei and Yururika planning their infiltration of the building. So we all clear on the plan? Asked Mei enthusiastically. Yes. First, we fly up to the room with the bomb located in it, which you found using your scanner thingies, with me using my zero gravity, and you use your boot repulsors. Then you blast a hole in the north wall with your Yururika, said confidently, until the last part, not remembering Mei's description of her weapon. Cold fusion cannon, using an arc reactor as ammo. Geez, it's like I didn't just explain it, Mei said, as she caressed her favorite weapon. It has been crafted from the removable armor modules. Each module was a chunk of nanotech that could be assembled into different configurations for different weapons. The cold fusion cannon was a bazooka-shaped weapon that launched fusion energy missiles and could be fired as a continuous fusion laser. She does, however, have to directly link her own reactor to the weapon to power it. Ever since Mei met Izu and Melly, her habit of causing explosions had significantly subsided. However, her affinity and love of explosions never went away, and this weapon was the antithesis of her love of science, as a firm for destruction. Yes, that. Yururika replied, a blank look adorning her face, not having bloody clue what cold fusion is, it what an arc reactor was. Then whilst you take on Todoroki, I fight Tsu after entering from a side window and capture the bomb. Yururika continued. Yes, alright, let's get to it then, announced Mei as she closed her helmet and activated her feet repulsors. Oh, hold on, you might need this, Mei said, handing Yururika the strangely shaped nanotech piece on her belt. They quickly became rod-shaped. What's this? Asked Yururika curiously. Push the button and find out, replied May with a prideful grin. So Uraraka pushed the button and the rod ignited and became an energy axe. Whoa, yelped Uraraka, stunned by the weapon. It's a vibrokinetic energy axe. It vibrates subatomic particles at supersonic speed, allowing the blade to cut through almost anything. Be careful with it, said May as she began to fly towards the bomb room. Uraraka simply accepted it and activated zero gravity on herself and floated upwards. Back to the present. Todoroki looked on in shock at the destruction caused by May's weapon. However, his confidence didn't waver as her unleashed a small iceberg towards May, completely ignoring Uraraka, as May had predicted. The ice was fired upon by May and vaporized by her cannon. This back and forth continued until Todoroki could barely move from his frostbite, but he was hopeful that eventually May's weapon would run dry, oblivious to the fact that its power had only diminished by about 3%, since May was using a very low letting to avoid vaporizing Todoroki along with his ice. Whilst this battle was ongoing, Uraraka was sneaking through a side window, ready to confront Tsu. She sliced through a window using the axe with less than accurate cuts, but she was in and ready to fight the frog girl, only to see said girl curled up and asleep on the floor, having gone into hibernation due to the amount of ice Todoroki generated. While this was easier than expected, sated Uraraka as she touched the bomb. Hero team wins, announced All Might. Todoroki was stunned by this as he turned around to see that Uraraka was behind him and Tsu was asleep. He was angry at Tsu for falling asleep. He glared at her. Don't blame her. You're the one who didn't bother to learn her quirk's weaknesses, stated May as she landed next to the half-frozen boy. F it, was the only thing Todoroki could say as he passed out from quirk exhaustion. Well, that was easy, said May, deactivating her helmet. Gamma Field Observation Room. As the trio of May, Uraraka, and Tsu, who had only recently woken up by May using the heat from her cannon, entered the room, all eyes landed on them. An excellent display of heroes young Hatsum and Uraraka. Also better luck next time, young Azui, announced All Might. Now can anyone tell me how and why the hero team won? The hero asked. Easy. Both Uraraka and Hatsum made an effective plan of attack utilizing their own strengths, like how both could fly, and Hatsum likely has a scanner that could locate the bomb. Also, Hatsum aided Uraraka in combat indirectly by giving her that energy axe. Whilst Todoroki clearly believed he could win on his own, not even really acknowledging Tsu as a teammate, not even learning her quirk, which if he could have made him change tactics had he known his teammate was affected by the cold, replied Yoorozu with greater confidence in herself. Yes, well done, young Yoorozu, you're exactly right, replied All Might, being completely taken aback by the explanation as it was better than anything he could think of. Now teams G and E, take your positions for now, it's your turn, announced All Might. After the intense showing of May's battle suit and Todoroki's incredible power made, the subsequent fights were rather underwhelming compared to what All Might and the other students had initially expected, though not without highlights. When teams G and A battled, Jiro and Momo made quick work of Hagakure, with Jiro using her enhanced hearing and Momo creating a pair of heat-sensing goggles. The battle ended in a hero victory as Momo captured Ida using soap and a net launcher. The after-battle rundown led to Momo being complimented on outside-the-box thinking and being very wild. Coyote, according to Melissa. The next battle between teams I and F had no real highlights, other than Ojiro showing of his impressive martial arts skills against Shoji, and he nigh infinite limbs, and Kaminari frying himself with his own quirk in an attempt to beat Kirishima, which led the trio of geniuses to start a brainstorming session on ways to mitigate the electrokinetics issue. The after-battle rundown was filled with laughter at Kaminari's expense. The second-to-last battle, however, got people's attention as it was between the villains of Team H with Shiro and Bakugo versus the heroes of Team J, being Tokoyami and Midoriya, whose battle suit everyone wanted to see in action after May's showing. So who do you all think will come out on top? Asked Kirishima to the group of young heroes to be. Whilst Bakugo's quirk does allow for significant power and mobility, and Shiro's allows for long-distance capture, I'd have to put my metaphorical money on Tokoyami for his quirk's versatility and Midoriya, since we have yet to see what his suit is capable of, replied Momo eloquently. I'd take that bet any day, replied Ojiro confidently. Same here, replied Mina with excitement. The heroes may now enter the building, announced All Might with gusto. Gamma Field. So you okay with the plan? Asked Izuku to his partner. Yes, you distract Bakugo, who for some reason has an axe to grind with you even though you haven't seen each other in over 10 years, whilst I head to the bomb room you found with all haste and defeat Zero and capture the bomb. Replied Tokoyami. Yeah, we got the plan, Chief. Replied the sentient quirk Dark Shadow, whom upon first meeting Izuku had asked 1,000 questions. Correct, I'll ride into the fray. Replied Izuku as he activated his helmet. After a few minutes and 3 floors, the heroic duo heard a veritable melody of destruction approaching them at high speed. Then suddenly, kaboom! An explosion suddenly engulfed the duo. Take that, you worthless Deku, Bakugo announced with vitriol and venom in his voice. I see you've gotten somewhat stronger since we last saw one another, Bakugo. Replied Izuku nonchalantly with Tokoyami standing beside him, neither having taken any damage. How come you're not dead? Yelled Bakugo at full volume. TCH, doesn't matter, I'm gonna put you in your place, beneath me where you should be. Bakugo continued with a voice thick with malice. Tokoyami, go on ahead, I'll deal with Blasty here, whilst you go deal with Zero. Izuku said, ignoring Bakugo's ego-fueled rant as he thought to himself. How is it that you've gotten worse since we last spoke, Bakugo? I thought maybe some therapy and me not being in your life would cool your jets, but you appear to be in overdrive. Is my being quirkless such an affront to your worldview that you held on to such a childish grudge for so long, or did every subsequent school you attended just give your arrogance and ego a free pass? Thought Izuku as Bakugo's yelping finally concluded as the blonde looked at the verdant man with a malicious fire in his eyes. You done? Asked Izuku. Can we do this, or do you want to give an acceptance speech as well? He continued to the anger of the blonde. Let's see how smug you are when I've beaten you within an inch of your life, you piece of trash. Replied Bakugo as he shot forward at high speed and attacked with ferocity. Izuku simply stood there without a care in the world or hint of fear, as he had supreme confidence in his abilities and equipment. Not gonna dodge, huh? Oh, well, your funeral. Screamed Bakugo as he let off a barrage of explosions towards his opponent, engulfing him in flame and smoke. Izuku didn't react, simply letting his force field endure the attacks. Huh, not so tough after all, huh? That fancy suit could hold up to my best, you worthless Deku. Bakugo's enthusiasm died mid-sentence as he saw Deku still standing without a scratch. He figured the first surprise attack must have been dodged by the 2 extras, which is why they got away unscathed, but now he knew he hit Deku point blank, and yet he's perfectly fine. How the hell are still standing? You should be on the floor, crying, you pathetic Deku. Screamed Bakugo as Izuku just looked on with a face that just screamed boredom. Ever heard of a force field? Asked Izuku to look of surprise on Bakugo's face. It's an invisible barrier of continual energy that blocks all physical attacks. In fact, mine is so dense it can even keep out bacteria, so your little light show did absolute nothing other slightly drain my core. Izuku continued gesturing to his chest reactor with a smug look adorning his face. Doesn't matter. If you have a limited power supply, then I just have to keep attacking until you run out of juice, then I'm going to pummel you so hard your own mother won't recognize you. Replied Bakugo sadistically. Unbeknownst to him, however, Izuku had easily linked his comms to the Gamma Field Observation Room, which meant that everyone could hear his Bakugo's sadistic words, and a certain hero wasn't happy. Go on then, I'll bet you won't even reduce my core by 5% with your little firecrackers. Replied Izuku. This sent the blonde into a blind rage of continuous attacks that couldn't any significant damage to Izuku's barrier, as his core recharged faster than Bakugo could deplete it with his best, only knocking it down to 99.3% at one point. After about 5 minutes of this furious assault, Bakugo backed up to reassess his options until a ping went off on his gauntlet, which caused a sadistic idea to enter his mind. If I combine my gauntlet's power with my frag grenade attack I used on those particularly annoying extras back at high school, and that one arrogant teacher who thought he could get in my way, then his shield has to go down or at least be compromised enough to deactivate so that I can show him his place. Thought Bakugo viciously and with an evil grin. Hey Deku, you remember how my quirk works, right? He asked condescendingly. Yeah, you sweat nitroglycerin and ignite it to create explosions, which likely mean those stupid and clunky gauntlets of yours have been designed with this in mind. I'm assuming you're planning on hitting my force field with a full blast in a vain attempt to break it. replied Izuku with a bored tone of voice and hint of sadness at seeing how far his former friend has fallen to his own ego and prejudices. You're half right. Bakugo replied as he darted behind a particularly thick stone column and took aim. No young Bakugo that attack may actually hurt or even potentially kill young Midoriya, blared All Might's voice over the speakers. He'll be fine if he dodges, was Bakugo's only reply as he pulled his gauntlet's pin, unleashing a massive blast. Kraka-KOM. A fragmentation-laden explosion rocketed towards Izuku, filled with biting rock and metal fragments that would kill any man in its path, all except those with 9 penetrable force fields, that is. As the last of the fragments of debris bounced off the invisible shield, Bakugo was left stunned at how inefficient his attack was. 3.9% depletion, over half. You're stronger than I expected, said Izuku joyfully to numerous stunned reaction in the observation room at how potent his barrier is. Bakugo was fuming this quirkless waste, this failed human. This Deku was showing him and his quirk up, making him look weak in front of All Might. And he was being looked at with a bored expression as if to say he wasn't worth the quirkless boy's time. He was being looked down on by someone who had no right to be at a hero school, let alone UA. The quirkless don't deserve strength, that's what his teachers at Aldera and Kariba told him. However, before he could do anything, he was restrained by an invisible force. All right, let's end this field test, Izuku said with his arm outstretched as he used his gyrokinetic module to mimic telekinetic bindings. He then approached and tapped Bakugo's left arm in capture tape. Young Bakugo has been captured, came All Might's voice, followed by another announcement. Young Zero has been defeated, the heroes win. Again came All Might's voice, signaling the end of the current battle. Gamma Field Observation Room. Congratulations on your hard-fought victory, young Tokoyami and young Midoriya, and better luck next time, young Zero and young Bakugo, the hero announced, stating the last part due to having heard Bakugo's violent and unheroic threats towards Midoriya. Can anyone state who was the MVP this round? Asked the hero. Easy. Izuku took Bakugo's childish grudge into account when planning, and thusly had Tokoyami leave the fight to find the bomb, as he likely guessed correctly that Tokoyami and Dark Shadow were weak to light is common amongst darkness and shadow quirks. To a fight, he was confident Tokoyami could win. Melissa stated, getting a nod of appreciation from Tokoyami. And whilst I don't agree with Izuku drawing the fight out so long, he likely has a reason to do so. Also, not to ignore the valiant efforts of Zero, he also did a great job defending the bomb without a partner and using a quirk clearly not built for combat. Lastly, Bakugo simply didn't work with or coordinate with Zero, instead jumping in a battle with no preparation to settle a clear yet childish grudge. So conclusively, the MVP is Izuku. Melissa ended her analysis to a round of applause from Ida and a few others, including Shinso. Right, you are young Shield. Couldn't V said it better myself, said All Might boisterously, again having no clue how he could add anything else. Now then, on to our last match of heroics today. Team C and B, take your positions, announced All Might. You may be my goddaughter Melissa, but I must judge you unbiasedly as a teacher now. Though if your suit is a cool at young Midoriya's and young Hatsum's, then I have total faith in you, the hero thought to himself. Whilst this was all occurring, Bakugo was at the back of the room, stewing in rage at his pathetic lose to Deku of all people, and already planning violent and bloody revenge. I'll put you in your place, you worthless Deku, just you wait, he thought to himself as his mind began to fill with sadistic ideas. As the last group of students for the day, Teams B and C, took their positions, the mood was dour for the heroes of Team C. So you got any plans to win? Mina asked Aoyama weakly. None. Alas, I haven't a plan to earn us a shining victory, the flamboyant Frenchman replied in a defeated tone. Okay, so we're up against a guy who can control our minds with his voice and an Amazonian in a suit of armor ripped from a high-budget sci-fi film. Yeah, we're screwed, Mina stated, accepting her fate to lose. If it is our destiny to lose them, we shall do so in style, replied Aoyama with enthusiasm. We shall lose on our terms, not theirs, he continued, attempting to hype up his partner. All right then, let's do this, Mina yelled with enthusiasm as she and Aoyama attempted to scheme up a decent plan. Bomb room. Shinso was nervous to say the least. Not to be fighting other people in the hero course. No, he had a modicum of confidence in his abilities to win. No, what he was nervous about was how he was going to impress the nearly 6-foot tall blonde Amazonian genius in power armor that was his partner for the exercise. So you got a plan, Shield-san? Shinso asked nervously. Just in me, Melissa, it's easier. And in terms of plans, I was actually hoping to rely on an overpowered ability of yours. Melissa replied happily, getting a significant amount of blush out of Shinso only covered by his voice modulator. Oh, sure, I am at your disposal. And Melissa, replied Shinso, flustered by Melissa's casual attitude and apparent plan to rely on his ability. So from what I've seen, both our opponents like to talk. Mina loves to make conversation and Aoyama likes drawing attention to himself. So my plan is to get that voice modulator of yours to mimic one of their voices to immediately take one of them out the fight. So take your pick, Mina or Aoyama. Melissa elaborated in detail as Shinso followed along as best he could. I'll take Mina. So does that mean you've got Aoyama? Shinso asked. Yup, I've got the Frenchman and you've got the alien. Now here's how we're going to divide and conquer. Melissa said as she began to explain her plan. 5 minutes later, Heroes may now enter the building, announced All Might over the speakers. As the hero team entered the building, they noticed that the lights were all off. To avoid drawing attention to themselves, they refrained from attempting to turn them back on, and thusly stuck together to avoid being picked off. Then suddenly Mina heard Aoyama speak. Excuse me, Mina, quick question? A voice from the darkness asked. Yeah, Aoya was as far as she got before Shinso took her mind, and her calm piece was hacked by Melissa giving control to Shinso in order to silently relay orders to Mina. Young Ishido has been captured. Came All Might's voice telling Aoyama he was now alone. So Aoyama suddenly found himself alone and rather nervous, having lost his partner to the darkness wielding his voice. He then walked through a door backwards to avoid a sneak attack. Unfortunately for him, however. Hey, Aoyama, said Melissa from the middle of the room Aoyama just walked into. The hero in knightly armor then spun on his heels and fired his naval laser directly at Melissa, only for Melissa to catch and absorb the beam using her right hand. Huh, how did you stop out my sparking laser? Aoyama asked, confusion lacing his voice. My DNA AI allows me react within a few picoseconds, and my artificial limbs can absorb energy, like your laser, which if my scans are correct, is more like a high-energy particle beam, due to the fact it clearly can't move at light speed, and it obviously possesses mass, which you showed off during the long jump section of the apprehension test yesterday. Melissa stated, completely deconstructing Aoyama's quirk like how Izuku taught her to, as well as showing it wasn't much of a threat to her. So you can absorb my mighty shining laser or particle beam, as you called it, replied Aoyama with all his flamboyance drained from his voice. Yeah, but check out what I can do with it once I've got the energy. Melissa replied excitedly as her right arm began to morph. It took the shape of a small curved cannon, which shot Aoyama's beam right back at him. An action he couldn't dodge, which led to him falling unconscious. Aoyama has been defeated, villains win, announced All Might. Observation room. Haha, what a wonderful display of teamwork, young Shield and young Shinso. Oh, and better luck next time, young Aoyama and young Ishido. All Might stayed with gusto. Afterwards, selecting an MVP mini was obvious, with Momo and Ida both praising her planning ability and her suit's capabilities. In her humbleness, Melissa instead attempted to give MVP to Shinso, but she was overruled by the boy. And thus the battle trails ended with All Might dismissing everyone and vanishing faster than most of the class could comprehend, with the acceptation of our trio, as their DNA AIs allow them to view time in picoseconds. After chasing back into their uniforms and preparing to go back to the dorms, Midoriya attempted to speak with Bakugo to try and get a handle on the boy's mind, only to be met with threats and a slew of cuss words. Oh, well, I've got better things to do right now. If he gets kicked out of the hero course, he's only got his own ego to blame. Midoriya thought to himself as he joined Mei and Melissa as they walked towards Nizu's office. The next day, after a difficult time entering the university thanks to human vultures or the press bugging them about All Might, our trio entered the room for homeroom from their latest meeting with Nizu. Aizawa turned and looked with a bored expression. Finally, you three should be more punctual, stated Aizawa bluntly. Sorry, sensei, we had to finalize things with the dean, replied Melissa, causing Aizawa to flinch at the mention of Nizu. Anyway, take your seats, we have stuff to talk about. Continued Aizawa had out trio took their seats. First of, I watched all the battle trials from yesterday, and most of you disappointed me, but a few were slightly above my expectations. Aizawa stayed coldly as he stared at the class as most of them flinched. First of Todoroki, your fight was embarrassing. All you did was spam the same attack over and over expecting a different result. For comparison, that's the definition of insanity. Either get creative or give up. Aizawa stayed with cold cruelness, to which Todoroki simply nodded. Next up, Bakugo, you're now required to take anger management therapy with Hound Dog, stated Aizawa as he was rudely interrupted. What, why? Yelled Bakugo with barely restrained fury in his eyes. Because your words and actions during your battle with Midoriya paint an obvious picture of an unstable, anger-prone, bloodthirsty nutcase, but the dean decided to give you one chance. So you will go to therapy, you will cool off, and you will mend your vocabulary. There is no debating this, it's final, and you will comply. Aizawa answered sternly, giving Bakugo no room to talk back, causing the blonde to simply grunt and turn away in acceptance. The rest of you were average with expectation for Midoriya, Hatsum, Shield, and Yoorozu. You all worked to their strengths and acted as effective leaders. Good job. Aizawa stated with no change in his facial expression. Now that's over with, let's start homeroom. And your first and only assignment is to elect a class representative and vice representative, stated Aizawa to the undisguised, boggled reactions of the class at something so normal. Over the next 20 minutes, arguments were made for many class members until Ida suggested a vote to which everyone agreed. However, our trio abstained as they didn't want to have their time eaten away with the duties, so the representative ended up with Momo in charge with Ida as her vice. Momo merely thanked the class, whilst Ida said a speak that lasted the rest of the lesson and nearly killed everyone with boredom. Lunchtime. As the class dispersed for lunch, the majority, or 1A, wondered where the genius trio, as the class had taken to calling them, were, until they saw Izuku and Melissa practically dragging Mei into the room, which caused confusion to grow within the class. Thought we dealt with this problem. Izuku thought to himself, thinking back to the many times where either he, Melissa, or both of them together had to force Mei to take a break and eat something. Whilst their reactors allowed for more energy, they did not allow for self-sustenance. Kinda feel bad for dragging Mei away from her babies. She looked like she was in the zone with them today. Oh well, eating is important, and we can't have our pink tornado starve on us. Melissa thought to herself, reminiscing on Mei's old nickname from when the trio were children, as well as harboring some jealousy towards her friend's near superhuman concentration when it came to her baby-making. She still couldn't help but snort at that name, Mei's active of inventing someone even after more than 10 years of knowing her. So is there a reason you guys are dragging Hatsum into the lunchroom? Asked Kirishima, slightly concerned for the pinkette. She was in the creative zone and wasn't responding to any stimulation, so we had to take drastic action, replied Izuku in a voice that implied that this was normal. Oh, okay, was Kirishima's stunted reply, not knowing what else to say. Oh, by the way, you guys have only ever been to heroics lessons. Why is that? Asked Jiro curiously. Yes, skipping classes is not appropriate action for US students, interjected Ida with an arm-chopping motion and stern voice. We've been exempt from any non-heroic or non-support due to our intelligence with the dean's permission. Also, when did we get to the lunchroom? Replied Mei bluntly with a hint of confusion at the end. I guess that makes sense. Your achievements in the sciences show you three possess a far higher than average intelligence. Melissa is American, so you all likely are fluent in English, and your professed love of pre-quirk media would likely make art history pointless. Replies Momo, causing the less intelligent members of 1A to feel highly inadequate and look away. Lunch continued without much ceremony until suddenly. Alert Level 3 Security Breach. Alert, alert, alert. An alarm suddenly went off and caused total chaos. Students began running for the exits. However, Melissa looked out the window and saw the cause. It was the press. Aizu, it's the press. They broke the barrier which set of the alarm. Melissa informed Izuku, who swiftly took action using his neurokinetic link to the Mayday AI to ask he to hack the P-Data system in order to have her route everyone outside in an orderly fashion. At the UA gate. This is certainly worrying, Nizu said as the dean looked at the now disintegrated barrier. The mood was tense to say the least amongst the UA staff after the break-in, as they met to discuss their future plans and the upcoming USJ trip with the hero students. They had just finished viewing the school's security cameras and found something disturbing. A blackish-purple portal opened right outside the teacher's offices, and a strange hooded man exited, entered the room, and then left with what looked to be a manila folder which they discovered had a copy of the hero course timetables in it. So, what's the plan moving forward regarding this brazen attack and the upcoming trip to the USJ? Asked Midnight. Yeah, how are we going to keep the little listeners safe if these guys not only know our moves, but can just portal in whenever they want? Asked Present Mike slightly above room volume. Many of the teachers at this time had looks of worry strewn across their faces, and those with covered faces like 13 and ectoplasm gave of an aura of anxiety. Fear not, for I have a cunning plan, replied the dean with an air of confidence in his voice, causing everyone to look in his direction with anticipation. You three may enter, the dean announced, looking directly at the doors. The doors then opened to reveal our trio entering, holding numerous inventions they've been working on since the break-in occurred. What diabolical plan do you have planned for my students, Nizu? Asked Aizawa with an air of caution and slight fear. I'll let them answer that, replied Nizu, confidently gesturing to the trio. Our trio first explained how they're going to upload the Mayday AI to the school system and upload all important documents to a closed server, as well as add more security cameras around the school and its various entrances. When doubts were raised, they explained that Mayday can operate down to the picosecond and only hacked by someone with an innate understanding of her DNA systems, which only they three possess. Next, Melissa hoists a briefcase onto the table and opens it to reveal numerous syringes with moving black ooze each one. The hell is that in the syringes? Asked Snipe in an American accent while still speaking fluent Japanese. Nanotech silent radios, or the codec as we like to call it. The nanotech will link to the speech and thought centers of your brain as allow two-way communication with anyone else on the right frequency. It's 100% silent, untraceable, unhackable, and is basically telepathy. Melissa explained, shocking the entire room sans Nizu, taking pride in her work and reminiscing about her inspiration for the tech, the Metal Gear Solid franchise, which also inspired May to try and build a Metal Gear. Thankfully, she was stopped. So we're all getting a shot of that stuff, but there appear to be more than necessary for us, stated Vlad King, still somewhat stunned at the artificial telepathy. That's because each student of Heroes course is also getting it, replied Nizu. Furthermore, the trip to the USJ will now be a joint class with both classes A and B going together. It will not only build camaraderie between the classes, but should anything happen, then 40 heads are better than 20. The dean continued. Okay, but what about the warp user? What's to stop them from just warping in and grabbing students? Asked Aizawa. During the break-in, we had Mayday hack the security to get everyone outside safely, but we also had her scan the building, and she picked up on the warp user's unique energy signature. So we built a device that should alert us to the user's presence and even potentially lock down their abilities. Izuku replied again, shocking the room with how smart the trio was as he produced the device. To build a device that could not only detect teleportation and portal usage, but also SHD down their abilities were both unheard of and thought impossible by the staff, yet they were all looking that very piece of technology, with various faces covered with disbelief. Now onto the matter of the USJ, stated the dean as he began to explain his plans for the trip. After the meeting ended, as the teachers all left to make preparations for their various classes and the potential of an attack, our trio stayed behind to speak with Nizu about finalizing an important project they'd all been working on. So did they agree? Asked Izuku nervously. They did indeed. Congratulations, you three. You are now the proud owners of Futurism Incorporated. I can't wait to see how you three shape the future, replied Nizu with pride in his voice. TH Trio were taken aback by this. After weeks of working with the dean after meeting him, they had finally created their own company, one dedicated to the advancement of technology, not just support equipment, but every other avenue. Physics, biology, engineering, etc. They had done it. They had taken the first step towards a golden future. We don't know how to thank you enough, Dean Nizu, stated Melissa, trying not to cry with joy whilst Izuku was thoroughly failing to do so, whilst May was in Wonderland thinking of all the babies she could make. Simply keep advancing technology and don't forget to share, he replied as he pulled out a contract for a joint partnership between UA and the trio's new company. The day of the USJ. Finally, the day arrived. Aizawa informed the class that they would be doing rescue training today and that they should grab their consumers, or don't. He didn't care, and make thief way to the bus bay. Ida attempted to force order via a seating arrangement before they even got there until he was informed by Aizawa that it wouldn't matter. When they arrived, they saw 2 buses waiting for them, which confused them as their class was only 20 people. "Sir, why are there 2 buses?" asked Kaminari. "Because there are 2 hero classes," replied Vlad King loudly, causing many in 1A to turn their heads. "Yes, did you arrogant people truly think you were the only one?" A loud blonde began before being karate chopped by a ginger in a blue long-sleeve karate dress, with a black corset and domino mask. "Sorry about Monoma, he's got an inferiority complex the size of Jupiter," the ginger said kindly with an apologetic tone. "It's fine, we've got one in our class as well," stated Ciro, gesturing towards Bakugo. "The hell you say, tape arms, fight me?" The blonde screamed in reply, causing an exhausted sigh to leave the mouths of everyone in Class 1A. "Oh, well, I'm Kendo, by the way, Class 1B's class rep," the ginger informed them. "Nice to meet you, Kendo. My name is Momo Yorozu. I'm Class 1 as class rep A." "Pleasure to meet you," Momo replied with her usual grace and poise. After the small hiccup with Monoma and Bakugo's egos, the introductions went down well, with the classes getting along well enough, and our trio gave everyone the codec nanotech, which stunned both classes. However, both Bakugo and Monoma refused, citing ego reasons that were promptly ignored as they were both pinned and injected. Afterwards, they all then piled into their respective buses and made their way to the USJ. During the ride, Class 1A made idle conversation with one another, with the exception of Bakugo, who picked a corner and sulked the whole way. Not that anyone wanted to talk to the nutcase after hearing his threats and insults during and after the battle trials. Our trio mostly talked amongst themselves, with Mei going on a crusade to convince Momo to assist the trio with her quirk, as she could make anything. She could easily cut down on their costs, but she made excuses in the form of not wanting to wreck the economy, to which all 3 called nonsense, and she relented. Then finally the buses arrived at the USJ. "Holy cow, this place is huge," exclaimed Kirishima, shocked at the dome's size. "Beautiful, isn't it? It's my own design," replied the Hero 13 as they entered the class's line of sight, causing a certain gravity girl to go nuts. "It's the Space Hero 13. They're my favorite hero," Yururika announced as she ran up and hugged the marshmallow of a hero. "Yes, I'm here today to teach you all about rescuing people," replied 13 as she pried Yururika off themselves with help from Vlad King. As the classes were entering the dome, the 3 teachers used their codec to communicate. "Hey, can you guys hear me?" asked 13. "Yeah, we hear you, though I'm still amazed at that," replied Vlad King. "Where the hell is All Might? He was supposed to be here," asked 13, annoyed at the number one's lateness. "Apologies, 13, but I used my time for today's stopping incidents this morning. There were like 17 of them this morning," replied the hero in question, also using the codec. "You are possibly the most irresponsible hero I know, you blonde buffoon," replies Aizawa, exasperated with the hero's rash actions, since he knew full well that the other heroes could have done the job without him. He really annoys me," Aizawa stated out loud. "But we can't cancel, so we'll have to make do," he continued as the 3 heroes entered. As they did, however, the doors suddenly slammed shut and locked behind them. "The hell? Why'd they do that?" 13 asked themselves as they attempted to unlock them. Suddenly, our trip's left gauntlets all started blaring an alarm, the alarm that signaled the warp user was here. The 3 started to frantically search the area until Kirishima spoke up. "Wait, they have fake villains here too?" he asked, to no one in particular, pointing to middle of the USJ plaza, as a hole in space opened up and a man covered in hands along with an 8-foot-tall monster exited, as well as dozens of villains which poured out, all looking rather excited. "No, those are real villains. We under attack," replied Aizawa as her Vlad and 13 got in front of the students in defense of them. "SOS, villains at the USJ. I repeat, villains at the USJ," Aizawa yelled over the codec, bypassing any interference the villains had set up and alerting the entire UA staff to the issue. "The USJ Plaza. Where's All Might? The timetable said he'd be here?" asked the handyman whilst violently scratching the back of his neck. "The timetable may have been changed, Tamura Shigaraki," replied the living portal. "F it. Oh well, if we can't kill him, we'll just break his pride," Tamura replied ominously. "Go get them Kurogyri," he ordered the now-named portal man. USJ entrance. Aizawa and Vlad King had just jumped down to confront the villains after telling the students to stay out, and for 13 to protect them. Kirojiri them appeared from nowhere. Greetings, class. Or should I say classes, as there appear to be more than we had anticipated. Oh well, it matters not. I am Kirojiri, and we are the League of Villains, here to kill the symbol of peace. However, as is evident, he is absent, so we'll have to settle for all of you. The living portal stated ominously, scaring half the class into silence. Like hell you'll kill, All Might, I haven't beaten him yet, yelled Bakugo as he attacked Kirojiri along with Kirishima, Kamakiri, and Tetsu, whilst 13 yelled for them to stay back, only for all of them to pass through him like we wasn't even there. Fools, you'll never hit me, I'm Ga. The living portal started, but was distracted by 13 attempting to gulp him up with her black hole quirk. Ah, of course, the legendary rescue hero, 13. Kirojiri stated, trying not to be sucked in. If you want to get to them, you'll have to get through me. The rescue hero yelled. Your quirk is powerful, but predictable and easily misused. Kirojiri stated as he opened a portal behind 13, causing a loop of gravity to ensnare the hero, leading to the back of their costume being torn off, and their back being mutilated. A heroic yet foolish effort. Now all of you disappear. Kirojiri yelled, teleportating half the students before Izuku activated the warp jammer, nullifying the villain's portals. What? The villain yelled, confused. We're not your average hero, students. Let's kick his butt. Izuku yelled as he Shoji, Ibara, and Siro all attacked, ensnaring the villain in vines and tape whilst knocking him unconscious. Okay, now he's taken care of, let's go help our friends. Izuku stated. No, Midoriya, should we not wait and call for backup? Interjected Ida furiously. Aizawa already sent an SOS via the codec, but we need to help our classmates now. Who's with me? Replied Izuku as he roused his fellow remaining hero students. Ida wanted to retort, but relented, knowing that raging would be a waste of valuable time and energy. Okay, but I hope you have a good plan, Midoriya. The stern speedster replied. Izuku looked at his remaining classmates as he, May, and Melissa began to scheme up a plan of attack. All right, here's the plan. Izuku began. So, this was the end of part 2 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.